Hello everybody. This video is on growing up with religion. Before I begin, I want to give a quick introduction of myself. My name is Marquel Garrett. I'm actually grew up in the South. I was born in Aiken, South Carolina, and I was pretty much raised for about the first 13 years of my life in Edgefield, South Carolina. And basically, this county is not a very wealthy county. And basically, it is where single poor mothers pretty much line up with their kids. And so I lived here for the first 13 years of my life. During that time, at the end of those 13 years, I lost my mother to HIV, to AIDS. After that, I then moved with one of my sisters to Aiken, South Carolina, where I pretty much then lived in between different sisters in Aiken until the age of 20, and then I joined the Army. And I just recently got out of the Army back in August. Also, right before I joined the Army, about a couple of years before I joined the Army, like right when I got out of high school, I founded an organization that was fighting for the equal rights of all Americans. Now, initially, this organization called the Lions of America organization was based in Salt Lake City, Utah. Now, with me being in Aiken, South Carolina, you can imagine how difficult things were for me to communicate with them and to lead. But ultimately, the organization wound up going under shortly after my entering the military. But then, about maybe a couple years after that, right when I got ready to deploy to Iraq for 15 months, the organization was refounded and established, based this time in Greenville, South Carolina. Very, very small organization, not really too much focusing on things on the national level anymore, but more just a local. And the organization now has shrunk down to be so small that it's just basically unheard of, and some things are struggling with that, mainly because people in the organization just simply don't want to work together. But needless to say, I have pretty much cut all ties with that. The experiment that I was doing, it just turned out to be just sour, and it's just not something that I am interested in being bothered with anymore for the time being. But what I want to talk about is growing up with religion. I was raised by a Southern Baptist, by my mother, and I was raised to be religious and to believe in God and to devote all my life to Him. One of the most harshest experiences I remember as a child is when I was in I believe it was the second grade. Yes, it was. It was the third grade. I'm sorry. And I remember I used to hang out with this kid. It would happen to be a white male, and we were best friends. But apparently, his mother and his father, and even himself, were all atheists. I had no clue of this, not to mention I had no clue of what an atheist was. Who cared? I was a child, I was in school, I had a best friend, we played together. I was nowhere near concerned of his religious affiliation or lack thereof, because I wasn't nowhere near concerned about my own. I was a child. But, needless to say, word got out to my parents. Now, naively as a child, I had no idea how word got out to my parents. But as an adult, I now know that the teacher and the principal coincided together to reveal this to my parents, to my mother, and nonetheless, when this happened, we went to the church that following Sunday, where I was forced to sit at the front row, and it appeared that the pastor was lecturing at me about choosing your friends wisely and not befriending heathens. After which, I was called out in front of the whole church to stay behind and see the pastor after the services, in which, of course, I did because I had no choice. Very nervous, very frightened. So I went to see the pastor, and that's basically when the whole spiel was gave to me about my best friend being an atheist and a heathen, and I can no longer be around him. And of course, once I then went back to the car with my mother, my sisters, my brothers, my mother explained to me that she had talked to the pastor, and that I would be grounded for 3 weeks. I would be doing extra chores, and I would no longer be able to hang around him. That I would be sitting at the front row often now, and that I need to consider joining the church. That's when I lost my childhood. And that's when, at that point forward, religion hit me hard, in the sense that we would vigorously go to Bible study. We was going to Bible study on a regular basis before, but every now and then we would miss a day, and plus, really did not pay attention to Bible study. My mother at this point really wasn't too hard of making sure that we got every little detail out of Bible study. But now she was, and particularly hard on me. And so, at this point, I began to see things like biblical contradictions, even at this early age, and other things that just did not make sense and did not seem to add up and not seem to be logical at all. And so, I would question the Sunday school instructors, and they would, of course, make me go stand in the corner if they did not know the answer, and felt that I was demonizing their lesson and basically playing devil's advocate with them. And so I was forced to go stand in the corner, and they would reveal this to my parents and to my mother, and I would be punished at home as well. And so I began to study. I got fed up with it, even at this young age, and I've begun to study the origin of religion. I got so frightened at what I was discovering, because at this age, even at this early age, I begun to say, well, maybe all religions is bogus, which frightened me, because my mother told me that you gotta God everything in your life, and without Him, there's nothing. That's just death and misery. And plus, my family was very religious. And if I was to essentially say something like this to my mother by saying that religion is irrelevant, that religion is not true, is not real, imagine the consequences I would have faced, even at this young age. And so I had the capacity to realize that, and simply cease the studies and just accept the fact that God was real. After my mother passed, a little bit right before she passed, I had already begun to give religion some thought again. Now you're probably thinking it probably had something to do with my mother's death. Actually, it didn't. Dominantly, it didn't. It just had something to do with the fact that I just was not satisfied with religion, and it still didn't add up, and I was still had in the back of my mind from when I was younger and studying religion that something else is true, and that's that the religion is not real. It's all made up. It's all bullshit. And so, at the age of 14, was when I declared myself an agnostic and started searching for different religions, studying different religions, and became very, very much so into developing my own religion and studying that. And so ultimately I finally came to the conclusion that you're not going to find a religion that's suitable. No religions are suitable. It's all bullshit. And at this point I had already educated myself on all the different religions, so I pretty much was able to rebut any